How did I become the doormat here? Memories spinning around my head seem pretty cavalier. Little by little you take control. It's a little uncivil how your game's emotional. And I don't even notice that I'm playing the game. Till you leave me alone and thinking I'm the one to blame. Your words weave strings around our limbs. Players in unfamiliar skin. Dangled like toys in your roadshow. Too easy now just to let go. How did I become a puppet here? The string unraveled from my heart has made it pretty clear. Little by little you take control. It's a little uncivil how your game's emotional. And I don't even notice that I'm playing the game. Till you leave me alone and thinking I'm the one to
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of People Who Inspire. I'm really happy today because I have a very special guest. And as I always mention every Saturday, the whole purpose of the PWI platform is essentially to understand the process that people go through to, hit whatever milestones that they hit in life. And today I have an important person, alumna of the University of Oxford and also Ashesi University. So it's going to be a great time. Going to understand Anna's journey, the various impact that she's created within the entrepreneurship ecosystem space and all that. So Anna, how are you? I'm really happy to have you here.
I'm doing well, friends. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellently well. I think we're talking earlier about like the last time we saw each other. Like I completely don't even remember. It's been ages.
10 years. It was like 10 years ago. The first and last time we saw each other here.
Exactly. I mean, for those of you watching, Anna and I met. We've met just once in person. I mean, and it was at this Engineers Without Borders program and all that. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. How has life been?
Life has been good. Alhamdulillah. I mean, it's been 10 years is a long time, right? But when we look back, it kind of looks like it happened last year or quite close by. But a lot has happened in 10 years, and I'm happy to delve into that soon.
Yeah. It's been excellent. I got people who kind of reached out to me and are like, "Oh, University of Oxford, I'm going to tune in." So, but then I want people to also understand that, beyond your academic strides, you are a full-fledged consultant, right? So we'll delve also a bit into your professional journey along side, how you got into in the University of Oxford. So tell us, so who is Anna? I know that it's a very tough question to answer, but can you tell us a little bit about, let's say, where you grew up, how you grew up, did you have siblings growing up? And then just walk us through, the various milestones, after BEC or WASI, if you did go through the system, and how you got into Ashesi, to that point, and then we'll continue from there.
Okay. So I'll delve in a bit into my childhood first. So I grew up in Accra, in Adenta. For those who are not from Ghana, Accra is the capital, southern part of Ghana. I'll be doing that a bit because I know that I have a couple of people who will probably be watching who don't understand the context. So I'll try and contextualize it a bit. Southern Ghana, yes, I have siblings, 4 amazing siblings. I think you know a few of them, but we are 5 in total. And we grew up in my parents' home, but we had other relatives who were staying with us, and so it created a very vibrant home environment where we got to connect with our cousins, our uncles, and aunties who stayed with us at different points in time. BC, I went to Alsted Academy. That's in Jolu, and
oh, really? You went to Alsted?
Yes, I went to Alsted Academy.
Oh, I wrote my BEC with Alsted because I went to Vicans. I don't know if you, yeah. So, yeah, we there's a school, this small school at Jolu. So we wrote our BEC with Alsted at the time in my year group. Interesting. Okay.
Which year was that?
This was I wrote BEC in 2002. Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. So you wrote at Jolu JSS then, because that's what we used to do.
Yes, Jolu JSS. That's why I wrote it. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, that's fine. So BC, I mean, the first major exam that we write, right? So you're very anxious about it, but it went well. I got into Wesley Girls High School to study science. I remember at the point that I was choosing what to go and study, I didn't know what to choose. And my parents have done a good job of not really making decisions for us, but giving us the information to make a decision. So they didn't want to tell me do arts or do science. And right at the point that we needed to submit those forms, my science teacher was the one holding it, and he wrote science, and I was fine with it because I felt at the time, I don't know if the educational system has changed so much, but at the time, it was if you did science, then you kind of had a bit more flexibility when you got to university as to what you could do. And so that's how I saw it. So I went to Wesley Girls, spent 3 years there. At the time, it was 3 years. And it was a good time. It was the first time I was away from home. I stayed in Cape Coast. If you ask me to find my way around Cape Coast, I can't because, I literally went to Wesley Girls and not anywhere else in Cape Coast. I was in the drama club, so we did a bit of going out into Cape Coast to participate in different events. I remember we came to Accra for was our 170th anniversary, and we were launching it in Accra. So there are a few times I came out of school. This was when the Chief Justice Georgina Wood, first gay girl, first woman Chief Justice. And so a few of us went to congratulate her on that. So there are a few times we went out, but I can't find my way around Cape Coast. I literally stayed in school, and it's not a thing that gay girls do to break bounds. So yes. And how I got into Ashesi. So I applied to Ashesi and I applied to a few other schools. I applied to Tech. I applied to Legon. And for those ones, I applied for science programs. So I applied for biological science in Legon. I got that. However, I was a bit, I think I still am, risk averse to going to do 1 year, write an exam, do an interview, and they say they will not give you medicine, right? And for Tech, I got biochemistry. I don't remember what choice of courses I chose, but I got biochemistry, and I wasn't so sure if I really wanted to do something that was really heavy in chemistry. And then there was Ashesi, a new Pan-African, if I can say so, liberal arts college, and there was a liberal arts hook that really got me. So, and I think I've done this a few times. I went to the school because of what the school stood for and not really the course I was going to do. So I chose the school first, and then I had to think through what course do I want to do. and then I chose to do business administration. I took a few extra computer science classes, but my core was business administration, and it's liberal arts as well. And so, you don't like start from the get go doing business administration, right? You have a bit of leeway to do things like text and meaning and social theory and other things that kind of opens your mind to what else there is.
I'm very curious because did any of your siblings have influence on you choosing Wesley Girls?
That's a good question. So my big sister, Jamila, went to Wesley Girls. My big sister, she's my best friend as well. And growing up, I mean, it's good to like have someone who's just a few years ahead of you, who's doing it and understanding the steps and then kind of guiding you. She did not tell me to go to Wesley Girls. But just seeing her do it, like I didn't think of any other school, to be honest, because my sister had gone there. She came back and told me about how the school was, what she was learning. I saw her participate in various things, and I could see that for the most part, she was enjoying the experience, right? And I didn't know what the experience was in any other school. And so to me, Wesley Girls was the school I was going to. Yeah. And I think my parents too, like my parents are both professional teachers. Yes, they're both professional teachers. My dad spent a huge part of his career being a computer science lecturer in a number of different universities in Ghana. And my mom has her own school for kids, crèche to junior high school. The school is, if I'm not mistaken, at least over 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And so education was a big thing in our household. Like till today, if you go to my house, my parents' house, there are books. Like, and so it was not something that like was on the back burner. It was always front and center. I knew that anytime I asked my parents for something related to education, we'll get it. If it was something else, I was a bit more hesitant because you need to prove why you need that thing. But if it's something related to books, you definitely get it. And I think aside just providing all of those things is an extra layer that as you grow older, you begin to appreciate more. The other day, I wanted to read a book, right? And the light switch in my bedroom is not near my bed. And it dawned on me that growing up, my dad will always come and turn off the lights in the room after like we've gone to bed. So like maybe you read yourself to sleep and then you come and turn off the light. He never said you've kept the light on too long or you went to sleep and the light was on. There was never any scolding around that. And I was just reflecting on how all of that helps you inculcate certain behaviors, right? But I never really appreciated it until I'm now an adult. My dad is not here to come and turn off the lights after I slept. And I realized that I'm not reading as fast as I used to be able to read because I just do not want to leave the lights on and then wake up the next morning, right? And so, yeah, I've just been reflecting on how aside providing the education, paying the fees, there are a few other things that kind of encourage children to take certain paths. Yeah.
I think you've kind of answered my next question because I was going to ask about the influences, around, your upbringing. Like I try to always understand the kind of environment that my guests grew up in. And I think you've answered it quite perfectly because I've been always curious because, I met Jamila online. I still haven't met Jamila in person, but online I had, no, I haven't. So I'm really looking forward to, I'm looking forward to meeting her. So and then I kind of follow her posts and the kind of critical thinking. Right. And then I met you through the EWB program and I was like, okay, so this thing seems to run. Is it hereditary or is it the environment you grew up in? So I've been thinking, right. So it really clearly tells me that because your parents, are teachers, they made sure that, all the kids read and all that. And that kind of environment definitely, like you said, has had an impact on you. And what is if you look back, right, what is so there's this notion in Ghana that there are some kids who are sharks, and I know to have made it to Wesley Girls, it means that you are a shark. What is, let's say, your fondest memories of Wesley Girls? Because there's also this mystery about Wesley Girls, at least from my point of view, right? I went to Infantsperm, and I think I went to Wesley Girls once, because I had become a prefect, and then your speech day were invited, and then so prefects, and that was the only time I had seen the school. And then there's this mystery about the school, like how do I put it? Like, how does one school able to churn out like almost perfect students, like academically? Like, it's crazy. I remember our headmaster used to compare us to Wesley Girls during assembly. You say, yeah, instead of you studying during prep, go to Wesley Girls. they are studying and they are making the A's and stuff like that. So how does a school like churn out so many 8 A's, 7 A's? Like what is, I don't know how to really ask this question, but what is like your fondest memory in Wesley Girls, and what do you think is contributing to this kind of like excellence in academics?
My fondest memory in Wesley Girls High School, nothing immediately comes to mind, but when you mention speech day, I could just picture myself again, like acting in one of the speech day plays, because I was in the drama club. I think that with regards to the academics, I mean, to a large extent, let's be honest, for several years, it was quote and unquote the best students academically girl students who got into Wesley Girls. So we cannot deny the fact that the input that they got was also good to an extent, right? But I think the school has also done a really great job of keeping up to certain standards by putting in place certain rules, right? Just to ensure that students are able to get time to learn and then also get time to excel in other things. So for the most part, if I think back about it, these were 15 to 18-year-olds at the time who, for the most part, were running the school. Like, our prefects were really good, that teachers came to teach. We had house mistresses, we had a headmistress. But on the day-to-day, it was students who were actually making sure that everything was happening as it should. And I'm talking in terms of like the schedules and everything, because when you're in your dorm, there's no teacher, right? When, for the most part, if you're in the dining hall, the prefects are the ones making sure that everything is in order. So I think there's that sense of leadership that is instilled, especially for the prefects, but also a sense of responsibility that is kind of inculcated. And if you have people who have already been excelling academically, you put them in that environment, it means that they are going to continue on that path, especially since you're meeting that competition in the school, right? I remember Form 1, before they released the results, the headmistress had to have a talk with us, basically to say, you were first in your JSS. Now that you've come here, like, these are people who are also like first in their schools and they've come here. So don't expect that you'll be first, because like the competition is tight. I think it was just a talk to kind of because some of us would have not ever experienced not being first or second or third in class. So to kind of cushion the fact that we're going to get reports that really didn't. And in GAY, you can get a really high grade, but still not make it in the top, right? Because it's like, and so like that competition, I think it just kind of encouraged us to learn a bit more. Plus, there's the whole brand, right? You come to GAY for a reason. And so you're still trying to ensure that you are not a person, or you're not part of the group of people who do not step up to that brand. Yeah. But I think the school has done a really great job of kind of keeping to the discipline and all of that, especially in the face of changing policies in our educational system. I don't think it's an easy job to be able to keep up to what was being done several years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've given me a perspective. I never thought of this. I think when we look at from a purely business point of view, you've talked about like brand equity. That's really because yeah, that's a very strong point because I remember, before I chose Infansfem, I had come across the 1999 year group, National Science and Maths Quiz. That's the group that won, from Infansfem School. And that image, like, of them winning, like, literally still lives in my head, like, today. That's like brand equity. If you look at, you enter a school where there is some sort of legacy of excellence. And so by default, it's almost like you just think about the school and where you are, and then you're like, okay, I need to keep up.
You need to live up to the name. Yeah. And now
Exactly.
old girls, like we are now part of it now, but the Old Girls Association is still very strong. Always coming and giving back, always coming and speaking with current students. And so you get to see where you could be in 10 to 20 years time as a student. And they encourage you to also live up to that, right? Live up to that name that made you want to come to Wesley Girls High School. And so to some extent, you've kind of taken on that name, and you just do not want to be the odd one out who is doing things contrary to what gay girls are known to do. I know there's some stereotypes around some of the things which are a bit more negative, but yes, for the most part, live up to the good things that we are known for. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a culture shock when I came for your speech day. It was the only time that I ever went to your school. And it was how you were clapping after like performance, the salsa. Like, yeah. I was confused. I was like, okay, so like there was this rhythm, you had like a rhythm, and then you all stopped at the same time, and I was like, it was quite interesting.
The clap. So there's the clap, but there's also like snapping the fingers. I think all of these
snapping the fingers.
They're a bit more on the culture end, right? I think of like in Oxford, they have their own cultures as well. And I think some of these cultures just make you distinct. I don't think there's anything more to the clap than just making us distinct in that way. Yeah. It's because you remember it. How many years after you still remember the clap? Right?
Exactly. I still remember. Yeah. No, you see, and that's why I like the fact that you mentioned about this brand equity, because when you look at it from a purely business point of view, I think we can pick a lot of business lessons from how the top schools have been run over the years. I mean, if you take, let's say, Presec, how they consistently win the National Maths and Science Quiz, we need someone to hypothesize and really look at exactly what are these people doing right? Can we replicate whatever like model they're using? If you take like Wesley Girls, how is it that majority of them like score like A's in the WASI or SSC during my time? And it's consistent. It's not like, a fluke. It's not like, oh yeah, they did well last year. And like every year. And then when we went to this West Africa version, it's the same schools that are topping. I think 2 years ago and last year's the same school, like Wesley Girls. There's a lady from your school that like won the whole West Africa. Last year was some fan springboard. Like, so it tells you, like, or it tells me, like, from a purely business point of view, there used to be this, let's say, thinking that, oh yeah, we are like local champions, right? Because it's just Ghana. But then when they extended it to West Africa, the same schools are winning the whole of West Africa. So it tells me like that, okay, we need to kind of dig a bit deeper, right? So yeah, you've got me thinking about something. I'll put it out.
I mean, you make a good point, right? I think that each school, if we look at it critically, each school has their competitive advantage, right? Presec is known for National Science and Math Quiz, and some people will probably go there because of that. And I think all of the other schools also have their own competitive advantage. Now, I don't think I can talk about Wesley Girls to completion without talking about the teachers. We had some really amazing teachers who were dedicated, regardless of what was happening in the external environment around teachers. They would always go above and beyond to be able to ensure that we covered what we're supposed to cover, or be available to answer questions or take the extra step to just guide us as we were learning. And so I can't talk about Wesley Girls without talking about the role that the teachers also played.
Perfectly fine with that. So you get into Ashesi, and from the little that I know from talking with people who went to Ashesi, the educational system, like you said, is liberal arts. So you kind of take on a lot of like courses, and then you kind of major, right, as you go forward. What was there like a difference in the kind of educational model that Ashesi was running? Did you have like a shock, or maybe it was similar to Wesley Girls, so you just kind of fit right in?
Ashesi was not similar to Wesley Girls High School. Ashesi encouraged more individuality and creativity. And I think that they had that flexibility to do that, because Wesley Girls, you need to be able to write the WASI. Ashesi would have its own exams, right?
Okay.
And I think some of the courses is like, they're not directly telling you to think a certain way, but they're teaching you how to think. So a course like text and meaning, I found that very interesting, and I think that I kind of still reference text and meaning in different ways. So basically, you've been given a photo of something, and they're telling you to interpret the photo. And so it just broadens your mind to thinking about things differently. Or you've been given a piece of text, and they tell you to interpret it. Like, what do you understand by what you've read? And you can like write a whole essay on that. Or you do things like social theory, and you're having to read excerpts of Malcolm X or Machiavelli or any of those other things that were not really part of. I did science, so I didn't do any of that. I don't know if the general art students did that, right? And so Ashesi was more about teaching you how to think, not what to think. And they really wanted to hear your opinion in the classroom. So like even right from there, we had to do case study. So you have case study discussions, because they want to hear what you're thinking, right? They want to hear how you're thinking about it. I remember one course that I took was problem solving. And I think this was probably the shock that I got, because in Wesley Girls, if I'm answering an elective math or core math question, I need to put all of the steps.
Yes.
As I'm arriving at an answer. In Ashesi, you don't necessarily have to go by that very mechanical way of answering the question, right? And in Wesley Girls, that's how the curriculum was. So across West Africa, that's how we were answering the questions, because you're going to get a mark for each step. And so you don't want to jump even if you know the answer. But in Ashesi, we had this course called problem solving, which was it was a math course, but you basically you were able to think about different ways to be able to answer the question. So for those who are taking GMAT or SAT, it was those kind of questions where you're encouraged to think creatively, even though you are answering a mathematical question. I think that was probably the biggest shock, because in Wesley Girls, my elective math and commerce teacher was very particular about those steps being in place, whereas in Ashesi, that was not a requirement. You were allowed to think creatively about it as long as you were arriving at the answer.
I think that's that's an interesting, because my experience at tech was a bit different, So I completely get why. I mean, it speaks for itself, right? You see a lot of the Ashesi alumni really being able to kind of get into places that, obviously requires that kind of critical thinking, right? Taking up roles that, requires that creative thinking. And so you go through Ashesi, and then what is your first job? Like what happened afterwards? And between getting a first job and then arriving at University of Oxford, what were you up to, with this timeline?
After Ashesi, I got into this program called Sponsors of Educational Opportunity, SEO Africa. So this was a program that had been running in the US and in London for a number of years. And basically the model in London and the US was taking students from historically disadvantaged backgrounds and then giving them training in different areas, but I think the one that cut across was to have like a strong work ethic. And so I did that for a few weeks, and then I got placed in one of the banks in Ghana, where I worked with a number of different departments over, I think it was just a few weeks. But then that experience of not just coming out as a student and then going straight into corporate, but having like a career launch pad of sorts was very helpful. Um, from there, I joined Growth Mosaic, which was just starting. Um, that was in 2013. It was just starting. We were working out of the Impact Hub Accra. Um, and I think it's important for me to mention why Growth Mosaic. So I think the last few, either the third or fourth year of Ashesi, so we had a leadership series that we started doing, I think, from second year or so. And the last of that leadership series was one on servant leadership and social entrepreneurship. And I had never heard about social entrepreneurship or servant leadership. My lecturer, Dr. Isi Ansel, was the one who taught it, and she's really good at like delivering a class. And it's not just like a lecture; it's more like a discussion, similar to all of us Jesse's classes. And so I was very intrigued about the whole topic about social entrepreneurship, social impact, servant leadership. And so at that point, as I was leaving Ashesi, I was really looking out for in what space can I combine my business administration training with impact? Like, how can I work in the impact space? And then I saw that Growth Mosaic had advertised a social purpose consultancy that was working to get small and growing businesses ready to access impact investments. And it sounded like the perfect role. And it was the perfect role. I know that one of my colleagues has described Growth Mosaic as like a training school of some sort. So we were working, we were getting to engage with entrepreneurs from various sectors, various backgrounds, and I was getting to apply what I had learned in Ashesi, right? I did a bit of supply chain, I did a bit of marketing, I did a bit of finance, I did a bit of operations, and I was getting to see how it looked like in different sectors by working with these businesses that were very impact focused and were looking to access impact investments. Some of these businesses were also just looking to build their capacity or to consider what does it look like if my model is working in X location and I need it to work in Y and Z locations. So that's how I got into Growth Mosaic, because I was really looking for an impact space to work in. You want me to continue my story at Growth Mosaic?
So no, I was just thinking about because I remember at some point I was working for Clean Team Ghana Limited.
Oh yes,
and then
yeah.
I think Growth Mosaic did some work for Clean Team, yeah. And and at the time, Clean Team was still like a startup, trying to kind of scale. And I remember very well the fact that such an organization, like at the time for me, it was the first time I had seen such a company or organization like Growth Mosaic focused on like building these small social enterprises that want to scale. It was the first time, because I never thought that there were organizations like that, because there's this whole narrative about the startup life. It's about hustling, grinding, and so for me, it was fascinating. Like, to be honest, I was like, oh, okay, so there are really like organizations like Growth Mosaic that can actually help. And when I think about let's say your time at Growth Mosaic, so I was reading your profile and everything. Was there like a single lesson that you gleaned from that experience that you think helped you in your next chapter?
So I stayed at Growth Mosaic for 8 years. I joined as an analyst. I had increasing responsibility. By the time I left Growth Mosaic, I was a director of acceleration. I think I had many lessons over the 8-year period. But I would say
Mm.
that probably the biggest lesson was to always do good work, right? And I think I got this lesson based off of the kind of impact our work had. That even if we were not able to get a business to secure investments because of some external factors or any other thing, because of the work we had done with them, they would probably be able to build their capacity in some way, or they'll be able to access investments down the line, which they themselves will attribute to the work that we did at Growth Mosaic. Um, and so I think that'll probably be my biggest lesson from Growth Mosaic, to always do good work,
Mm.
regardless of who it is you're working with, regardless of what the challenges are. Like, always put your best foot forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for me. Yeah, it's like and how do you people trivialize, that kind of mindset. Like I have that perception as well, that like in whatever you do, just be excellent at it, right? Put in your all, right? It's I have sometimes my friends will tell me like I'm over preparing for something, and I have that tendency, but there's a
Yeah.
reason. The reason is I want, at the end of the day, I want to know I kind of put in my all, even if it doesn't succeed,
Mhm.
I did my best, So
Yeah.
yeah, I completely align with you. And what I'm thinking about is, after Growth Mosaic, did you still stay within the social enterprise space, or did you kind of move on to another
Yeah. So after
industry?
Growth Mosaic, I joined Mirepa Capital because Growth Mosaic merged operations with Mirepa Capital
Ah,
in
okay.
2020.
Okay.
So I joined, and I ensured that, or I helped ensure that all of our intellectual property over the 10-year period, we were able to transfer it to the team at Mirepa Capital, and also to help build a team of external consultants that we work. So I worked on a few projects while at Mirepa Capital. And the team at Mirepa Capital is great at what they do. They were doing something similar to what Growth Mosaic was doing. And so we thought it would be good to like merge operations, because Growth Mosaic was at the time ready for something else, right? So we merged and then transferred that intellectual property to Mirepa Capital. And so I worked there for 5 months. And then after that, I joined the Mastercard Foundation, the Ghana office, um, working to help design some of these programs, which were targeted at job creation, which is part of the Mastercard Foundation's Young Africa Work strategy to create 30 million jobs across Africa by 2030. Now, this job creation angle is kind of something that was still there, like right from Growth Mosaic, because that was one of the things that we used to measure like how well we were doing, how many jobs have been created because we were able to help build the capacity of an organization. And I think even at Mirepa Capital, which now has a fund, in addition to doing investment readiness and enterprise support, it was also something along those lines. And I think that work is important because of the unemployment situation that we have, unemployment and underemployment. And so it has become imperative that private sector, that startups, that small and growing businesses have a strong job creation angle, because it's almost impossible for the government to be able to provide jobs, and so we need the private sector to fill that gap, as we are innovating and solving problems in our communities and all of that. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So, I'd like to get into the aspect of, can you maybe tell us, before we get to the University of Oxford, how you felt when you got the acceptance letter or email. Can you, because one of the things I'm trying to intertwine with this conversation is kind of how we can nurture the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And from your experience, right, working with social enterprises, working with, companies and things like that, what, from your point of view, right, what are the, let's say, the two major gaps that you see, right, that kind of hinders startups or smaller companies from moving from one point to another, either through scaling, or hindering them from scaling, hindering them from internationalizing their products or their services? Like, I'm trying to first see from your point of view, your experience, what are the two major gaps? And then would you also be kind enough to share a potential like solution to these two gaps that you've seen?
Okay. So I think this first gap is a gap that is probably very obvious, especially for the work that I was doing of trying to get investment to some of these businesses. So access to finance. And I think access to finance is an issue in several entrepreneurial ecosystems across the world. Um, but the access to finance problem is big, right? And there are various reasons why people cannot access finance. The reason, like maybe there's a lack of capital. There could be the reason where they are not ready to access that kind of finance. Um, or there could be the reason that the investors do not understand the kind of businesses that they'll be investing in. So that's why Growth Mosaic and Mirepa Capital and Hub and all of the others who are playing in the space play a critical role of translating what investors are looking for to entrepreneurs and vice versa, as well as translating the context. Because some of these investors, most of them, until recently, that we have some funds coming up in Ghana, most of them were international investors. Sometimes too is just like the documentation. Most of our businesses in Ghana we actually started as a need for a source of income, right? And so once I'm getting the money, like what else? Like what are you telling me that I need audited financial statements and all of that?
Yeah.
Or I need to document my track record in some way. But because we don't have those documents, it makes it hard for us to access these or be part of these systems of getting finance, right? Banks will ask you for this documentation. Angel investors will ask you for this. Everybody will ask you for this documentation. And I think that even if the roles were reversed, you would also ask people, because how can I give you my money without actually knowing what you're going to use it for, without actually understanding your business, right? So that I think that's the one thing I always told entrepreneurs, like you need to document your track record. Even if you're just starting the business and trying it out, document everything. Document what worked, what didn't work, just so that you can look back and like connect the patterns, understand the insights, know what to do next. I think another thing that I don't think this is limited to startups or SMEs or social enterprises is that we have a skill challenge that
Yeah.
we need to close that gap around people being able to execute. So you have a brilliant business, you are the founder, but as you grow, you need to hire people into your business. And then when you hire people into your business, you do the training and everything, but there's still some kind of a gap that is there where these people are not really able to support you to go where you want to go, right? And so I think that's the second major thing, which is like the skills gap. I'm going to throw in a third, and I think it's the regulatory environment. We need an enabling environment for entrepreneurship to thrive. And I know that this current administration has done some work around using entrepreneurship as a tool for job creation, as a way to kind of support the economy more. Like over 75% of businesses in Ghana are SMEs. And so we need to be able to create an environment that really allows them to thrive. I know that we need more revenue as a country, and taxes are the way that we go about it. But at the same time, if you overtax a small business, they're going to close shop, right? The people who are employed, they are going to lose their jobs. The communities that are benefiting from their goods and services are going to be affected. So it becomes a question of how do we balance this? How do we ensure that, yes, we're getting the revenue that's needed to grow the country, but we're not doing it in such a way that is stifling businesses? In the same vein, we started this buy made in Ghana goods, right? And at the time, working with entrepreneurs, they'll be so excited about getting their goods into certain supermarkets. But the issue here is that just because the goods is on the shelf does not mean that they're actually making the money that they need to make. And why is this? is because of the what's that thing called? The payback period, right?
Yeah,
They will
yeah,
get their money back in 30 days, 60
yeah.
days, 90 days. And if they've produced these goods and they're sitting on the shelf, you've really just locked up their capital on the shelf. Their working capital is locked up on the shelf, right? But it shouldn't be the case. They should be able to turn this around faster. So I think that for policies such as that, it's essential that we think through all of the steps in the chain and see how we can ensure that this policy is actually making the impact that it's supposed to make. Because if you create that policy, is great. Entrepreneurs are able to get their goods onto the shelf, great. But if I'm not able to get my money back fast enough to turn around, then it becomes a question as to, is this really helping me, or should I have kept my goods in the mom and pop shop or the kiosk down the road to be able to sell a bit faster? I think we need to, I know that there are so many dynamics that come to play with some of these things, but I think that it's good that we start these kind of conversations, right? To kind of think through how can we really create that enabling environment for these businesses that are holding such a huge part of the economy, that is really benefiting all of us. Yeah.
I think you made a very important point there. So for entrepreneurs watching this, right, these are crucial, especially the first point of documenting and archiving. You know, it could be your business processes, it could be your financial statements, it could be, you know, your milestones, whatever it is. And I think there's that challenge of people having the tacit knowledge, and then when they are no longer in the company, then it's like, okay, everything they know about the processes and everything goes with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really dangerous. And you mentioned something about creating an enabling environment where we're looking at the macroeconomic factors and so forth. I think was it yesterday or 2 days ago, one of my friends on Facebook made a post. You know, he runs a small, you know, company, and he was kind of really lamenting on how difficult it is to do business. You know, he mentioned that for some of due to the power outages, some of the machines that he's using either had broken down, and then, you know, finding replacement for these machines will cost them upwards of $25,000, and it has to be imported. Yeah. And even if he gets the money now, by the time he's ready to buy, because of the changing nature of the exchange rate, you know, it's really kind of a complex environment. So the environment also really impacts the innovation ecosystem. I totally agree on that.
Exactly. Especially since entrepreneurship is still not mainstream employment. It's still not like when your child is down in school, you're not thinking about them starting a job, right? And so it's important that even as the social and cultural factors are not enabling, if I can coin it that way, it's important that at least we need to make it a bit more attractive, right? We need to make it's not an easy journey anywhere in the world, but where you have systems to support you better, it becomes more attractive. It becomes what, like the second stream of employment that can be considered after you're done with school, right? I work with some young entrepreneurs who they started their businesses and their parents are like, this is not what I had in mind for you. I expected you to be working in an office somewhere, not trying to figure out your business model, not knowing whether you're going to sell and all of that. And so I think it's important that we support entrepreneurship in such a way that we get to the point where it's considered a mainstream like path to employment, or a mainstream employment avenue.
Mm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's something also mentioned about the fact that it's completely like, because I spent some years ago, I spent like a whole year trying to understand the psychology of like the ultra successful entrepreneurs. So I spent lots of time and reading books, on Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and all those people. And like you rightly mentioned, they had agreements with their parents that, look, I'm going to try this entrepreneurship thing. If I fail within the next year or two, then I'll come back and continue my college degree. So it was an alternative, like it was a path, it was an option, but in our society, it's not there yet. It's not on the table. So it's still, I call it, entrepreneurship is still at the kind of stage, hustling, let's try and make some quick buck here to support, my other activities. Yeah. So completely agree on that. Yeah. I mean, this is a very important point.
Yeah, just to add a bit more to that. That said, I do also kind of agree with the school of thought that students should have experience working in, like, being employed to be able to get some skills in addition, because you have a business, you start the business, eventually you still need to engage with other businesses, you still need to engage with your own employees, so you need to have an experience related to that in some sort, right? It can be internships while you're in school or something, but I wouldn't advise that straight out of school you start a business. Like, there are certain things that you need to learn in order to position you to excel with whatever business it is that you're running.
Yeah, that's very true. And especially within our context, right? You see, when you go to the West, doing entrepreneurship is kind of part of the education, right? So you have summer internships, So it's kind of, so the reason why they are able to kind of right after school go into entrepreneurship is that they pick up certain soft skills and certain skill sets along the way, right? But in our part of the world, right from BEC, you're going to SSC, then, so it's like that, and then university, and then, so you really don't have any reference points as far as either managing a team or, managing projects is concerned, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree. There's, and that's, I call it the kind of, the quandary that comes with entrepreneurship, right? It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So it's perfectly fine if you're like passionate about something and you think you're ready, and then after school you want to launch, just go in there. At the same time, if you don't feel ready, if you're not confident about your idea or you're not confident about the product, you need to give yourself time sometimes. And it's perfectly fine to, do an internship somewhere or even work, General Sanders, KFC, started KFC after retirement, right? Yeah. So it's perfectly fine. And then there's also the Mark Zuckerbergs who just left school to start, right? So whichever way, there's no like one path, but whichever way, but whatever it is, make sure that you feel confident, you feel ready, right? And you have identified like a gap in the market that people are willing to pay for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. That's what I wanted to add. Now let's come to University of Oxford. This is what everyone is waiting for, and that's what I'm also waiting for, because you never know. Maybe someday I'll try out. So, why did you pick University of Oxford? That's number one. Number two, where were you when you got the acceptance letter? Like, what is your reaction? Did you, like, I really want to know a description of that, right? So these are the two questions, right?
Okay.
Why the school, and where were you when you got the letter or email that you've got into University of Oxford?
So why the school? So the very first reason was that they came for an info session in 2017 in Accra, and I attended that. Side Business School came for an info session. And I just like the way impact was front and center in everything that the school did. It's known as one of the foremost impact schools. So before impact was the thing to say or the thing to do or the thing to be focused on, Side Business School was already focused on impact. And for someone, I told you why I worked with Growth Mosaic, right? So that's like, I have an impact focused career, and I was looking to do an MBA, and I was looking to do it in a space where they would give me the tools to still be able to continue on that trajectory in some shape or form. And then I started the application process. I was applying to Said and a few other schools. And I noticed that the Said admissions team, like there was a very community like feel to it, right? I could feel that I was being supported in my journey. I could feel that they were ready to answer my questions, um, to encourage me as I was doing the application. And I didn't really get that feeling from other schools. And so the question was, what kind of culture do I want to be part of, even in business school? And so that's why side business school was like top of my list. And then I got like a scholarship. Like I didn't have to pay for it if I went
Wow.
side business school. And so yeah. Plus there's the whole University of Oxford, right? You're in the business school, but you're still engaging with other schools. You're still engaging with other students, studying other things. You're broadening your
Mm.
understanding about what's happening in the world. um your teachers are, or your professors are, doing new research, understanding new ways of doing things, and teaching you that in class. And so all of that sound exciting. Like I've already told you, like how education was like very important as we were growing up. And so it was like, if I'm going to do an MBA, I want to do it in an environment that encourages me to explore other things as well, right? That kind of satisfies my curiosity. Another reason for Said is it's a very diverse cohort, right? So I met over 300 amazing people from across the world who had done so much in their careers, who had done things I had never even considered to be career paths. And so it was just exciting sitting in class, learning with them, understanding their different perspectives, which I think is probably one of the key things I learned out of the University of Oxford, was about people's different experiences, how it helped them form opinions, how people's lived experiences influence their perspective, and how you should be able to just appreciate it. You don't need to accept it, but you need to appreciate that, like, someone is not just saying something just because they want to say something. They're saying it because there's certain influences that have put them in the position to have to say something along those lines, right? Um, so yeah, when we speak about when I got the acceptance, where was I? I think at the time I was working from home, so I was in my room, and then I saw the email, and then at first I couldn't believe it, and then I think the first thing I did. So when Muslims pray, we go into sujood. I don't know
Yeah.
if I don't know if I mean. So when we pray, the very last part of the ruku, like you put your head on the ground, right? And
Okay.
that's just as a way of, like, a way of praise. Like it's an act of worship. It's a way of
Mm.
praise. And I think,
Mm.
and that's probably
Mm.
the first thing that I did. Um
Oh.
and so I was happy, but then I didn't know if I could go because I didn't know how I was going to pay about
Oh,
65,000.
yeah.
So like when you get the offer, you don't get the scholarship
Scholarship.
at the same time. You need to still go through the
Yeah.
process and know whether you got it and all of that. So there was still that at the back of my mind, but I was just really thankful that I had even been able to get into the school in the first place. Yeah.
Wow. And I can again, I can imagine your parents' like reaction. I know because they're
Yeah.
teachers, they would probably like, I don't know, just my like thinking they were
Yeah. So
probably ecstatic.
I think that I had a whole community that supported me. My parents were
Mm.
amazing. My sisters, my brother, my cousin had gotten to Oxford, had finished Oxford a few years before. Um,
Oh, okay.
and so like all of them, like my friends, like I had a whole community. So when I wrote my LinkedIn post and I said, um, it takes a village, like it really took a village. It really took a village. I remember writing my essays, and then like I'll write it like, because I was still working, right? So I had to make time
Yeah.
to write it. I'll write it sometime from dawn, and then in the morning I'll go to my parents' room and I'll go and read the essay to them for them to give me feedback. Because I know if I send it to them, they may not get time to read it. So
Yeah.
I'll go and read it to them and they'll give me feedback and I'll incorporate it. My
Wow.
cousin, Mona, she also reviewed the essays for me. My sister, Jamila is a writer, right?
Jamila
She
is like a serious writer. Serious.
exactly. And then like someone from Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, the organization that I mentioned, Sidimisu, she also helped review. And so I had several people who were very invested in me getting to University of Oxford. My brother, I remember, so after you do everything, you submit your application, you're supposed to do some kind of a video interview. Like they want to get to know you a bit.
Oh,
So
really?
there's a video interview before, like there's an actual interview. And I remember that I was getting ready for that, and I told my brother I need lights, I need a mic because I just
Yeah.
wanted to see everything. And my brother is into video production. He brought his
Oh.
photography lights and everything into my room and
Hey,
set it up.
hey,
Yes, I
hey.
know. So yeah, my family really came through for me. My community really came through for me to support me just to be able to get, because it was something I had wanted to do for a while. And I'm glad that on the first try I got in and I got the full scholarship. Now the funny thing is I remember all the time that I had been thinking about doing an MBA at some point and all of that. The number one thing was like, how am I going to pay for it? Because
Yeah.
this is not small money. And my sister continuously told me, don't worry about the money. Because she had done that. Like she had gone to John Hopkins.
Yeah.
And so yeah, she just told me, don't worry about the money. Like just focus on writing your GMAT, putting in the application. The money would figure itself out. But she didn't know how much it was. Um And so I did that. I did that. And I'm sharing this because I'm just trying to encourage other people, like, don't give up. It's not easy. It's not easy anywhere, right? It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of resilience, a lot of grit. But at the end of the day, what is meant for you will find you. Like what is meant for you, you get it. So I was worried about the money, but at the end of the day, I got 2 full scholarships and I needed to decide which one I was
Oh,
going.
wow.
Yeah. So like my sister said, that worked out. Like it figured itself out. She always told me it will figure itself out, and it figured itself out. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I know our time is up, but
Yeah.
there are maybe a few comments that I've seen. Please, if you're watching this, we just barely have like a minute to wrap up. I know we are 3 minutes above the time. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them or any comments. There are a few of them, like really short comments. And let's see. This is from Mohammed Charles Murphy. I'm super excited for this episode. It's a great guest choice. Yeah, of course it is. It's Anna. Of course it has to be. And then we have Mash Kojo says, "Go Anna." So you seem to have lots of the villages behind you.
Yeah.
Sharaba Konadu, Debu Lady. Yeah.
That's the basic name.
Yeah, I get it. Silas said just chanced on this and I love it. Yeah, thanks Silas for watching. Yeah, this is just a few comments. I'm sure a lot of the comments or questions also come later because people would watch it after the live stream. So Anna, I'm very happy, excited for the next chapter of your life and your career. I know that, like, for me, I count it a privilege to know people like you because, you know, we are coming from, you know, backgrounds where, I mean, like ordinarily the chances of, let's say, you know, getting to the University of Oxford, you know, where you grew up, you know, to get into that school, you know, with all the competition, getting 2 full scholarships, and then you have to decide, you know, it's, for me, it's testament to the fact that the process, if you follow the due process, if you work hard and you put in your best, definitely you'll get some results. So yeah, there are two comments that just came in before we wrap up. This person commented anonymously, so really inspired, great session, thank you. And then Priscilla Achia said, "I'm very proud of your achievements, Anna." So yeah, I'm with them all. Yeah,
Thank
do
you
you have
all for
any
the
final words?
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Do you have any final
Final word.
words for? Yeah.
Final word. So first off, Prince, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad we're able to do this after postponing it a few times, but I'm glad we've been able to do it. I think another thing is for those who are interested, because I'm guessing a few people are interested in University of Oxford. So we started a blog series like the African MBAs, who are my cohorts. And so if you check Side Business School's website, there are a number of stories from different African MBAs who are
Yeah.
my class.
Yeah, definitely.
And so some of that could give you some
Yeah.
insights or some give you some inspiration for when you're applying. Yeah, I think it would be good to check it out. And don't hesitate um, to reach out to different people who have done the MBA. Like I said, we have a very community like environment aside business school. And so people would very likely be willing to have a conversation with you around their experience inside business school or the University of Oxford. So if you see someone that we'd like to reach out to, you can go ahead and reach out and they'll be happy to answer your questions. That's how most of us did it. Like we reached out to people we didn't know and asked them questions and they guided us a bit from the process. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anna. I again truly appreciate your time and thank you for being part of the People Who Inspire platform. I want to also thank all of you who tuned in, those of you who are going to watch the stream later. I really appreciate the quality 1 hour that you spent with us. And Anna, I wish you a great weekend. And yeah, the future is only going to get brighter and greater for you as well.
Inshallah. Thank you, Prince.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll see you in the next episode. And bye-bye for now.
Bye.